There's no awards for getting promoted 1 billion times at the sacrifice of everything else in your life. There's just no awards. So really all we're supposed to do is just show up for ourselves and show up for how we want ourselves to be in this world. That's the only award that matters, because that's the one that you are giving to yourself. Hello and welcome back to another week of Calling in Sick. I'm your host, Alex Willison. Guys, I'm so excited about this week's topic. We are 2.5, 3 weeks out of the end of 2024. How that happened, I have truly no idea, but we are almost at the year end. And because of that, I wanted to dedicate an entire episode to, one, what it's like facing the end of a year as a chronically sick person, and two, this awesome habit, ritual, routine, tradition, I don't know the right word to use here, that Cooper and I do to audit our last year and plan for our next. And I'm just really excited to dive on in and share this with you guys. It's probably one of my favorite things we do every single year. And I know that sounds so silly, like auditing your year and planning for the next year. Why is that one of your favorite things? Well, you guys know I'm super sentimental and I'm type A and love a good to-do list. So this is truly my Super Bowl activity. I know I say that about duvet days, but I think maybe I have 2 Super Bowls. I don't know any other sports references that I could throw in on that one. World Cup. This is my World Cup. Before we dive on into that, I want to do a few housekeeping things. One, please make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, send to a friend who needs to hear this, or a family member that you want to understand you a little bit better. If you're listening, please make sure you rate the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It just helps the podcast get to everyone's ears and continue to grow the platform and community. Next housekeeping thing, thank you guys so much for participating in the giveaways this month. I'm doing one every single week in the month of December. So check socials, make sure that you are following along so that you can participate in these giveaways. The first one was pretty epic, I have to say. We had donations from some of my favorite brands, and we got 2 winners that were selected, and those are getting shipped out this week. And then, if y'all were following on my socials, I had a chocolate fiasco over the weekend, but it allowed me to re-engage with Vermont nut-free chocolate, which is like my favorite chocolate in the entire world. And so now I'm doing a giveaway this week with them and treating one of y'all to one of their holiday gift baskets. It is excellent. I've been eating this since I was like 6 or 7 years old, maybe even younger than that, because back in the day when I was a kid, ingredient labels did not have to disclose if products were produced in a shared facility or the same shared equipment as those with peanuts or tree nuts or other like core allergens. So it was like a no-go on the whole candy and sweets front for me for basically most of my childhood until we found Vermont nut-free chocolate. And when we found Vermont nut-free chocolate, my world changed. I could have something sweet whenever I wanted. It was chef's kiss. And I felt special. This is probably why I like to treat myself so much. Oh my God, this is totally why I like to treat myself so much. This was like holidays or flare-ups. I would receive in the mail a special box just for me of chocolate or like other little dessert goodies that my siblings were not allowed to eat. My parents were not allowed to eat. It was only for me. And now that I'm thinking back, like my parents definitely were the ones who taught me treat yourself when you're having a bad time with like little goodies. We love micro wins, which actually is going to be a core theme in talking about the year in review and the year forward. But before we dive into the year in review, let's do a quick update on where we last left off. So this week, symptoms-wise, I would say I'm a mixed bag, kind of like how I feel about the end of the year. Pain is not great, like muscular skeletal pain, I would say, but that's because the weather is changing drastically. We just went from like early fall to deep winter in a week in Austin, Texas. The weather dropped, or the temperature dropped 50 fucking degrees. So as you can imagine, my joints, my muscles, my tendons, everything is aching and not feeling great. And if I sit for too long, stand for too long, lay down for too long, anything for too long, my body is just rioting. So that's been, really nice to navigate this week. I will say though, I'm doing better than I thought I would and better than I usually do during these times And I'm going to chalk that up to an early IVIG win. I don't know if it is, but I'm going to tell myself it is, and will believe that until proven otherwise. So thank you, IVIG. I also tapered prednisone a little bit more. I'm now at a solid 30 milligrams from 60. So like that's a huge win. Loving that for myself. Mental health feels a lot more steady now, which is awesome because I was in the worst depressive episode of my entire life for the last few months. Having rolling panic attacks. It was a rough go, like a really, really rough go. But I think I'm coming out of that now. I feel a lot more stable and steady. I feel more like myself, which feels so good. It's really hard to describe that. Like if you struggle with mental health and you've been in these kind of deep holes before, when you get out of it, it's kind of like, you know, when you've had a sinus infection or cold and you can't breathe really well, and when it lifts, you're like, I'll never take my breathing for granted again. Like, this feels amazing. That's how it feels exiting a really, really dark mental health period. All of a sudden, the world is brighter. You have joy again. It's amazing. And you just have like your personality, like your energy is back. You don't have to put on this energy to step into who people think you are. You just are that again, naturally. And it feels so fucking good. And you also don't have to like spend the spoons pretending to be okay when you're not okay, which maybe is not even a good thing to do. Like I'm learning a lot this year, doing this podcast, making myself audibly reflect on how I handle things and realizing that there are some things I need to change. Like, it's okay to not be okay. And maybe I can record a podcast and be like, I'm fucking depressed, and tell you guys all about it and know that y'all understand and can relate and that this is a safe space. Other things that happened this week, I saw Wicked, and I have not been able to stop singing any of the music. I love musical theater. In middle school, I was in a ton of plays, a ton of musicals. It was my jam. And in high school, I realized that like my voice is not great at singing. And that was further proven in college when we did Sing Song my freshman year of college, which is like a sorority fraternity pledgeship pairing. And you have somebody writes a script and you sing and you dance, and it's like all choreographed. You do this for months on end, practicing a few times per week. I was cast as the lead, as Miley Cyrus in our own adaptation of her journey from Disney star to like a Darth Vader character. We combined Star Wars and Miley Cyrus. It was awesome. But I realized during that experience that my voice cracks under pressure a lot. I have an already kind of like vocal fry voice. So yeah, I learned I wasn't great at singing during that time period. Nonetheless, I have been singing loudly in my home, and thankfully my husband thinks that my voice is beautiful, and that's all that really matters. But Wicked was so good. I mean, the storyline itself, amazing, phenomenal, but being a invisibly disabled human being and watching them show a storyline of someone that was disabled and noticing like how much of the set was clearly disability friendly was amazing. And then I did a little bit of research. Turns out that was forefront of the entire production. From costuming and design, from casting, from, I don't know what else goes into that bucket, but everything. They had this at the forefront and designed it as not an option. Like, oh, it can be for disabled people, or it's just not going to be. It was, there's no option. That's the world we live in. It has to be, which was really refreshing. Going into 2025, I'm like, yes, more of that. We've got insurance companies backing down from people complaining more. What else? What else is on the horizon that's going to change? I, for one, am excited. I feel like there's some cool, fuck yeah, it's not the patriarchy, but fuck yeah, something energy about disabled people and chronically ill people getting our good lives back. And people caring and society caring. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. We started our next 21-day challenge last week, and we're focusing on pain reprocessing and integrating that kind of foundational elements of it into our daily routine. So we're doing a 1 to 3 minute body scan at some point during the day. I like doing it at the end of the day because that's when my pain has really built up to a whole new level. Body scan, and then as I go through everything, I take note of the bad sensations and I just, recognize them. I don't make any kind of opinions on them that that's bad or good. I just recognize, okay, that's painful. And then I try to identify 3 positive sensations. And when you do that, it helps your brain kind of focus that even though there can be a negative sensation going on or painful sensation, there's still good sensations too. And it helps rewire that like fear-based pain. And fear-based pain is how non-structural issued pain, non-inflammatory pain, aka like when you should be feeling better but you're still in pain, it helps rewire your brain to get out of that kind of cycle, pain, fear cycle. We're diving more into that next week, and I'm super excited for the episode because it's awesome. When I first learned about PRT, I was like, this is not for me. That sounds like a lot of work. Also sounds like I'm the one at fault, and I don't like any of those things. Turns out I had those were misconceptions, and turns out it's also like really helpful. So we are slowly doing some things and adding tools to our toolbox in this next 21-day challenge to make our pain a bit more manageable and get our brains on straight for the new year. And then we'll learn about what that's actually doing next week. So stay tuned. And if you haven't already, make sure that you join the group chat on Instagram. It's awesome. We're trying to find a name for it right now. So if you have any ideas, please spitball them. I'm all ears. I've been calling us the sickos, and I just don't think people love that. So back to the drawing board we go. But the group chat's great. People are, telling their own stories in there. I feel like friendships are being built naturally. So join if you would like to have some sicko baddie friends. It doesn't sound great. I'm hearing it out loud. It's not great. We gotta wordsmith that one. Okay, and with that jumbled intro, let's dive into my picks of the week. I have two I'm very excited about. One I just have been talking about, Vermont nut-free chocolate. We love it. Check my stories for links this week. I'll be sharing. If you have not had it yet, you can order it on Amazon or off their website. It is delicious. They have M&Ms that are safe if you're peanut or tree nut free. And I do believe that they have other allergens. I do believe they're thoughtful about other allergens as well. So take a gander at that. Second pick of the week is Modern Picnic. You might have seen them on social media. It is the coolest innovation to lunchboxes I have ever seen. So if you are a chronic illness baddie, you might find yourself in need of carrying around a lunchbox with a little fridge in it, with a little ice pack in it to keep your snacks cool and refrigerated. Or you might need to carry around medication that needs to stay cool. So Modern Picnic has designed the cutest freaking bags. They look like purses. There's various different sizes and designs, but they look like luxury handbags. And they're reasonably priced. So their bags range in pricing basically from like $50 to $200. That's the biggest size and the cutest design, I would say. But they are sending over a discount link. It'll be 15% off any purchase. So check my socials this week. I'll also put it down in the description below. And happy upgrading your lunchbox. Now you can be a cool girl with a lunchbox purse that no one knows is a lunchbox. Huge. And what do we put in our purses? Honestly, all I have in my purse is a wallet, snacks, my medications, loops, headphones, a lot of chapstick, and an Olipop, which needs to be refrigerated. So win-win. Okay, so look at the description below, check my socials this week, and you will have some really fun holiday cheer eating chocolate and keeping your meds and your snacks cool in a cute bag. We love it. Okay, and now let's dive into all things New Year related and being chronically sick. First and foremost, I would say that the end of the year, just like holidays, comes with a lot of different emotions, a mixed bag of emotions, if you will, for most people, including the chronically ill. So, if you're in my cool camp, the chronic illness camp, let's go through why that happens. First and foremost, I think there's some FOMO. Like, we definitely are not going to all the holiday parties or the cute pop-up holiday restaurants or bars and activities around town. We're out of spoons. We're exhausted, like trying to go to all of the activities and events that we can, and holiday shop, and do all the cute holiday festivity things around home, and maybe travel or host. It's a lot. It's exhausting. And it's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves, like I discussed in the holiday episode, to kind of perform and be at our best, even when we might not be feeling our best. Also, it's usually cold as shit, which, as I said earlier in this episode, isn't great for the joint pain. the musculoskeletal pain, not it. That there's a highlight reel syndrome is what I like to call it, where everyone's posting their best parts of the year, where they're like traveling, getting promotions, having babies, getting married, plethora of other things to be excited about. I think it's super easy to be like, oh, fuck them. I didn't get to have any of that this year because I'm sick. I hate everybody. Supernatural response, honestly, get it out of your system. However, what this whole episode is going to be about is like accepting that, and then let's do something about it so that we feel better, because I don't like to accept feeling like shit physically or emotionally. So we're not going to settle and say okay to that. It is okay, though, to look at that highlight reel syndrome and feel sad or angry. That is okay. Because the reality is our lives do look different than what we thought they would look like at the end of the year, probably. We probably didn't hold true to most of our New Year's resolutions. But guess what? Healthy people didn't either. Our diseases might have gotten worse. We might be on medications we really did not want to be on. We might be in the longest flare-up ever. We might be dreading January 1, where all of our insurance restarts and the deductible clock restarts, and then there's financial stress and financial burden thrown at us again for being sick, which I, for one, am very nervous about. I'm switching insurance companies Jan 1. IVIG, as you guys know, was a brutal fucking process to get approved. I am due for my first infusion, or I'm due for my next round of infusion starting on December 30th, which means I will be starting infusions on one insurance and ending it on a different insurance in the same week. Can I pull that off? I do not know. I am so scared shitless. Fingers crossed. If any of you guys have tips on what to do to navigate that, please, please DM me or comment or shoot me an email or whatever. I honestly do not know what to do with this situation, and I am quite nervous. The other part about the highlight reel syndrome is I think it's super easy to look at that, realize your loss and grief of not having those highlights in your year, and then your brain kind of staying on that track and jumping to, well, here's the laundry list of all the shitty things that happened to me this year, and let me make a anti-highlight reel of everything bad that happened to me. And honestly, like, all of us can have a really long list, because being chronically ill, you stack up the shitstorms month after month and sometimes year after year, and it is depressing, honestly. And you have to grieve the fact that you are doing this yet again, looking at the highlight reels and going, okay, this is not where I want to be. And there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of self-blaming, self-guilt. And then you go into the loop of like, oh my God, I'm complaining. Things could be worse. And I need to just be positive. And then, oh my gosh, that's toxic positivity. It's a cycle that is just really hard to shake out of. So I wanted to get ahead of it and do this episode weeks before the end of the year so that we can all prep together and avoid that shitstorm, because we don't have to do that. We can do something else, and that's allowed. So before we dive into my guide on like end of year audit and New Year's planning, I want to make a very clear statement. I think New Year's resolutions are really tricky. I think it's easy to set yourself up for failure with them. And when you're chronically ill, we don't need to be set up for failure more than we already are. I think people make really grand, broad goals, which is wonderful. Like, I mean, aim for the stars. But that can be debilitating also when you can't predict your energy levels or like what you actually are going to be able to accomplish in a year, when we don't know what we're going to feel like even by this afternoon or this evening. So I approach New Year's resolutions in a very different way. I'm all about the micro goal setting for a couple of reasons, but two big ones. One, micro goals still give you that serotonin boost of goal setting and accomplishments. They give you structure in a year. And I guess I'm going to add on a 3. Small wins build momentum. And momentum allows you to change and pivot from where you are. And that's growth. So at the end of next year, no matter what, you will have small wins that put you on a different trajectory. So no matter what, as you're focused on those small accomplishments throughout this next year, know and remind yourself when it gets hard or when you don't want to do something, you've already been doing it. And you already have had improvements. So even if you were to stop in the middle of the year, you're still in a different place than you would have been had you not done any of them. And that kind of levity or maybe lack of accountability, I think, is really important so that you don't get the guilt that comes with setting New Year's resolutions. I also want to focus on intentions and habit building, slow habit building, instead of these massive goals. And what I mean by that is instead of saying, I'm going to work out every single day for the next 365 days, that would be a lofty goal. Love it for you, but like not probably that practical for most of us. So instead, I like to focus on an intention. My intention is to get movement back into my life in a more regular cadence. And how I'm going to do that is through building really easy habits that are sustainable. So anybody can carve out 15 minutes in a day. Truly anybody. You have to just give yourself permission to do that. And in those 15 minutes, I can go for a walk. I can stretch. I can lift some weights. But that's my goal. And if I can do more than that in one day, amazing. If I can't do that at all in one day, that's okay. But 15 minutes feels feasible on a even low spoon day sometimes. Now, to build on that, I like to have parameters. So how can I actually act on that? But I'm getting ahead of myself. There's way more that we need to dive into before we get into the action part. So this is probably my most favorite. This is what I was referring to when I said my most favorite part of the year. This is the year-end audit. Cooper and I sit down, we have a date. We bring out a huge, big white piece of paper and put every month on it. And then we each have our little books to go through. And I'm going to show you guys the 3 different tools that we use for this. 2 of them are by Intelligent Change. One is the 5-minute gratitude journal. Love it. This is like the crux and foundation of my entire last year. The best year journal. This is how I'm prepping for this next year. I wanted to try a different approach. And this is what I used last year. And I'm still integrating some of the core things from it. It's called the Self-Care Planner, and it's by Simple Self. Out of all of these things, the main takeaway is carving out time in your day to reflect, kind of digest what happened during your day, find out your wins, find out your losses, find out what you want to change for the next day, and then putting in a plan to make that happen. I think it's really easy in this modern world to have goals and just keep running forward, but if you don't look back ever, you can't actually move forward in the right way. You're just kind of moving aimlessly. I guess I should say that differently. If you're not looking backwards and reflecting, then you are running aimlessly forward, and it could be in the totally wrong direction. So that's why I really like this year-end audit first. Okay, so I took notes, so you guys don't have to, and I will share them. But if you want to take notes, you can do that too. The first thing I want to do is have y'all sit down and do a self-assessment on 7 core pillar areas. And if you want to tweak any of them, feel free to. But these were the most prevalent areas in my life that I wanted to focus on last year and that I'm going to focus on this next year. And these are health and well-being. Maybe honestly bifurcate that into physical and mental because Lord knows we got a lot going on in this well-being-ism. Next one is self-growth. That can be self-discovery, activities, it can be hobbies, it can be creative outlets. Make that one your oyster. Next one is spiritual or religious. That's up to you if you want to include that pillar. Next one is fun and adventure. Next is financial. The next is work or giving back. And the last is relationships. And that's kind of bifurcated too between romantic relationships and then friends and family. When you are reviewing all of those 7 pillars, I think try to identify 3 to 5 things that happened throughout last year. Make maybe 2 of them good, 2 of them not great, and then one that was consistent. So let's do an example one. We'll look at fun and adventure. I very ambitiously had a trip planned per month for us last year, thinking that was going to be possible. But by mid-January, maybe even a week into January, I should have reassessed that and realized that was not going to be in the cards for us that year, and we needed to pivot. So looking back, I now want to be more intentional about my fun and recreation versus kind of dreamy and wishy about it. And what that looks like for this next year for me is I would love to do 3 social outings, 3 to 4 social outings per month. That's kind of max for me. I'm a homebody. I love when people drop by and swing in. I don't like going out. Midweek hangouts are super hard for me. I work a consulting job and then do content creation and podcasting. I'm pretty busy during the week. And I don't have enough spoons to do work plus well-being plus creativity plus socializing. So I pick and choose. But going forward, I really, that's important to me. That cup did not feel full enough last year, and I want to make sure that cup is full this next year. The next thing that I want us to do is to write down 3 to 5 things that brought us joy in the last year. Now, it can be really hard to think of the whole year. So go month by month and try to think back to what you did. Go scroll through your phones, have a little sentimental hour flipping through some memes. It's really, really fun to do. Cooper and I love it. It makes us reminisce on fun little dates that we did. We write notes for what we want to do next year, cute stuff like that. I keep a little running notes page of my wins for the week, or if I get a really nice text message or something, I have a folder saved on my phone and I go and I look at those. So those help remind me of the wins of this year. I'd say my biggest wins of this year were transitioning my work front. Granted, it was a window that was slammed shut, not by my choice, but a door did open, and that is a God wink universe nudge to me. I got to join my sister in scaling a business. I kicked off my own business, calling in sick, and just content creation in general, and being a social media girly. And I'm really proud of those 2 things, of taking what I had previously seen as this is the end of my identity with career and work, and transitioning it into, I'm going to, since I can't fit into that mold anymore, I'm going to build my own. And that was really fucking scary to do, candidly, but I'm really glad I did it. And I know that I was only able to do that because of the support that I had. And then that's the next one, is to write down your little heroes. Who helped you in bringing those moments of joy and filling your cup throughout the year, on accomplishing the little goals or wins throughout those 7 different pillars. Okay, so now that we've kind of brain dumped everything, it's time to zoom out. And this is the consultant in me. It's time to reflect and draw out our conclusions. Here is where you look at the forest instead of the trees. And by that, I mean, pull out what lessons you learned. What made you grow this year? Did you have clarity emerge anywhere? And what are you proud of from this year? When I look at this last 12 months and I think about the greatest lessons that I've learned, I think it was overcoming some of the lies I had told myself. And honestly, when I look back at the last 2 years, this is the same thing I said this time last year. I overcame the lie that I was too complicated for functional medicine, or for honestly anything other than Western medicine. And overcoming that lie I had told myself unlocked a whole new level up in healing for me that was instrumental in where I am today and where I was at the end of last year. So this year, my biggest lesson was getting over the lie of I can't hold a job, I can't work, I can't build my own business, I won't be able to do it. And the growth that has come out of that was me having way more confidence in myself than ever before. It's not that I wasn't confident prior to this year, or this realization or ownership of who I am and my identity. It was that I drew confidence from external sources instead of internal. And now I can say with full confidence that I like who I am because I like myself, not because other people like me. And that was a big shift and transition that really came from hitting rock bottom and then having to dig myself out multiple times this year. And the clarity that came out of that kind of self-discovery was that I could live in alignment, in that really beautiful Japanese sentiment and phrase, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, ikagi. So ikagi is basically living in alignment, and it's where these 4 different aspects overlap, and it's what you love to do, what you're good at doing, what you can get paid for doing, and what the world needs you to do. And so finding this alignment, I don't think would have happened had I not had some travesties happen at the end of last year and the domino effects that it had on my life this last 12 months. And that might be toxic positivity as a coping mechanism to deal with the trauma I'm still working through. But viewing it in this way allows me to see the beauty in life and to move forward and to be excited about the life I still get to live. So I think this section can feel a lot like identifying lessons from this last year. And I want to preface that not everything has to be a lesson. Things can just suck and suck. Things can be great and just be great. And there doesn't need to be some huge momentous, profound ism that you pull out of it for yourself. But alas, I did anyway. So I wrote mine down. My first one is that I really learned how to dig deep. And I thought I had grit before this year. Girl, whole new level of grit. Whole new level of grit. I was at my physical and mental lowest point I have ever been in my entire life, multiple times throughout this year, where shit just kept getting worse. And I think in those moments, the lesson I learned out of that was to dig deep. And I love this quote by Brene Brown, and it kind of sums it up. We can choose courage or we can choose comfort, but you can't choose both at the same time. And it's not wrong or right to choose comfort or courage. It's intuitively understanding what you need and what you're capable of at that time, and then reveling in it. Being so joyful that you're going to choose comfort. Being so joyful that you're going to choose courage, and putting your momentum behind it. Digging deep and putting your momentum behind either one of those choices. The second lesson, and I've already kind of mentioned it, was when a window is slammed shut, start looking for a new door. The universe, God, whatever you want to say, I believe that God opens doors for us. And it's really easy to have our blinders on and not want to see the door because it doesn't look like the door we're used to or the door that we were hoping for. But when you take the blinders off and you're open-minded, you find the door. And when you walk through it, it's this whole new beautiful world for you. That for me was losing my job and starting a podcast. And when I did that, I was like, well, I'm throwing away an entire career in finance, very sophisticated investing, and a path that was safe. But the door that opened has brought me more joy than anything in my career in the last 10 years. The joy I feel out of getting to make this show, out of making the content I get to make, of interacting with you guys and getting to know you and hear your stories. I wake up every day and I'm really excited to do that. And that's why I'm able to do that when I'm in the hospital, when I'm getting an infusion, because it doesn't feel like work for me anymore. So that was a great window to get shut, because this door I've walked through is awesome. The third lesson from this year for me was to outline your dreams to a detail so you can chase them and hold yourself accountable to them. Otherwise, they're just wishes. So when I first started content creating, you guys, you should go back and look at the stuff I was putting out a year ago. I was just trying out new things, and Lord bless, they're very sweet, but they're not great. I didn't have an outline of what that dream was. I was just trying to tell my story online, and I didn't know what it was going to look like. And honestly, at that time, I probably didn't need to outline it. I needed to just try a bunch of different outlets and pathways and see what stuck. But when things started to fall into place and they started making sense, that's when I sat down and I was like, all right, I'm going to outline what I actually want to come out of all of this. And the sky's the limit, so I'm going to shoot for the stars. And that was, I would love to get a podcast going, and I want to be on a network because I want to do this right and I want to do this big. And the universe and God said, girl, let's do it. And when I met Alex Bennett and the team here at Just Media, that became a reality for me. I knew if I kept outlining my goals and chasing after them, things would fall into place. But I didn't want it to just be a wish or a dream. I wanted it to be my reality so badly. And so I put the time and effort behind it to outline my goals. The fourth thing that I learned is that it's so important to love deeply and love deeply for yourself. I think in my life, I have been a people pleaser historically, and I have loved so deeply my people, sometimes at the expense of myself. And over this last year, I decided it's time to start loving myself the same way I tell my friends to love themselves. And what that looked like was learning how to put boundaries up and saying, I can't have that conversation right now. I can't go and do that right now. I'm not comfortable with this. And finding a way to make peace with that, because I needed to love and honor myself enough to say no. And that had repercussions. People fell out of my life because I was having boundaries for the first time ever. And that's also okay, because if you love yourself and you're honoring those boundaries, the universe and God are going to bring the right people into the room with you who love you and want you to have those boundaries too. The last thing was, all you have to do in life is show up for yourself. And sometimes that just looks like brushing your teeth, and that's it. That's all you have to do. There's no big pressure to be something or do something crazy and monumental. There's no awards that you get for being the perfect friend who drops everything and shows up like that. There's no awards for getting promoted 1,000,000,000 times at the sacrifice of everything else in your life. There's just no awards. So really all we're supposed to do is just show up for ourselves and show up for how we want ourselves to be in this world. That's the only award that matters, because that's the one that you are giving to yourself. We've gone into the weeds of our last year. We've risen up, taken the bird's eye view, kind of summarized everything from our last year. The next thing, this is the fun part, the next thing is to build the action plan for our next year. So we're going to reference those 7 categories again, which is health and well-being, self-growth, spirituality or religion, fun or adventure, finances, work and giving back, and relationships. In the way that we make small wins have momentum is we look at things from an annual perspective, and then monthly, and then weekly, and then daily. And you get it down into these really bite-sized, chewable, digestible, durable, and sustainable habits that you're going to use to propel yourself from where you are today to where you want to be in 1 year from today. And during this whole exercise, I'm going to keep hammering it home. Find the why. Why is that habit important? Why is that goal important? Why is it okay for you to completely drop doing a certain routine? If you're okay with the why, you will have momentum to follow through with it. For these goals, I also think it's really important to time bound them. So is there a certain date that you want to have something done by? Is there a frequency that you want to do these habits or goals at? And are there people that you need to support you to do these things or to hold you accountable? Now, the last part I think will resonate delightfully with our community, and that is to give a treat. Have a treat outline for when you reach your goal or when that habit has really sunk in. The important thing with this part is to find the balance that is right for you in your lifestyle, your life's demands, your spoon count, and your capacity and your accessibility to do these things. So tailor this as you will to your life. And the next thing that we're going to do, which is I think probably my favorite part of this entire activity, is we're going to write out our 2 ideal days. We're going to write out descriptions of 2 days that enable us to do these new habits and routines and intentions, and to put these intentions into action. So if you are taking notes or journaling alongside this episode, on one page, you're going to write out your ideal day's routine. Then on another paper, or the other side of the page, or the bottom half of the page, you're going to write out a hard day. What does that day look like? Morning, midday, evening. This is a high pain day, high symptom day, low spoon count day. And the point of this is that no matter how you're feeling or how you're waking up, you have 2 action plans that you don't even have to think. You already have it designed for you, and you just can wake up and do the motion sometimes. And that's sometimes the best we can do, and that's also okay. But I found that this specific activity allows me to do the motions that I want to do, instead of allowing myself to be like, well, I don't feel good, so I'm not going to do anything. And then I'm in a flare-up for 6 fucking months, and that's been the excuse for 6 fucking months. So when I do this, it allows me to say, okay, so even on my worst days, I'm going to find 15 minutes to stretch in my bed, because I can do that. So the point of that whole exercise is not only to have outlines for adaptability on approaching each day, but also to give yourself permission to take advantage of good days without overdoing it, and to allow yourself to rest and still feel productive and fulfilled. And the last part of this whole exercise is to build in time to reflect. Because as I said at the start, if you don't look in the rearview mirror, you're going to just be running aimlessly forward, potentially at the wrong thing. So these review sessions are important. I do it on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, and then obviously annually. Daily, what does that look like? That looks like my 5-minute gratitude journal. In the gratitude journal, in the morning, you're writing down 3 things you're grateful for, 3 things that would make the day great, 1 daily affirmation. At the end of the day, your highlights of the day and what did you learn. Easy. What else does that do? It allows you to think about what you did today that you want to do again tomorrow, or what you want to do differently tomorrow. And I think that's the whole unlock in being an adult, is understanding how you want to approach the next day and setting aside time to do that. Otherwise, you have to start your day figuring out what you want to do instead of just getting ready to do it and then doing it. And that takes spoons. So you fill out your intentions and your small habits that you're going to do for each month. And then I like to have kind of an overarching goal that goes across everything, or theme, I should say. So for the month of January, I think the theme is going to be reset. I know, how creative and original am I? New Year's resolution reset. It's like everyone's doing it. But what I mean by that is I'm giving myself the permission to have a blank slate and to build from scratch the routines that I want to have, the habits that I want to instill, and focus on kind of this clean reset, I guess. So at the end of January, what I'm really hoping is that I can sit down and reflect. And instead of holding myself accountable to all these KPIs, key performance indicators, and metrics, and saying, it's all or nothing, did I get these goals accomplished? Instead, I'd rather end the month of January and say, did I have good balance across these 7 pillars? Did I have some micro wins? Let's celebrate them. What worked, what didn't work? And then have a lot of compassion for myself for whatever I was able to get done, and focusing my brain on that. And I think that kind of parallels to like our 21-day challenge we're working on right now, which is like training your brain to focus on the thing we want it to, or associate something good with the bad. So I guess if you're listening to this very rambled episode that's supposed to be a guide to your annual audit and next year planning, the biggest takeaway that I want you guys to have and walk away with is that this year we are approaching everything with good intent and compassion and balance. Not these rigid goals or trying to fit into the mold that everybody else in the world does, because we're different, and that's a good thing. So let's build our own mold of self-improvement and discovery and growth and having wins. And so this time next year, we can sit down and we do have our own highlight reel, because good shit happened because we put it into action. And that can look like anything for each of us. Whatever your heart desires, you just have to sit down, digest it, figure out how to make it work for you, and we can do this. As a community, I am so certain of that together, this group of humans that are chronically ill and life has pushed down time and time again, if we work in a collaborative way and help each other up and out, we can get a lot done. It's just going to be done together instead of done alone or in a siloed way like the rest of the world does. And hell, if you ask me, that sounds a lot better to do a bunch of cool shit with a bunch of people you love instead of doing cool shit by yourself. So as we go into the last few months of this year, please feel free to DM me. We can talk about it in the group chat, the Sickos group chat, still wordsmithing clearly, and decide how we can best support each other going into the new year with these new intentions, these micro goals and micro habits that we're going to instill and do together. And onward we shall charge. I love you guys. Catch you next week. Bye. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me for another week of Calling in Sick. As a reminder, I would love for y'all to like, follow, subscribe, save, share with a friend, do all of the things. It truly helps grow this community, and it helps these episodes reach the people that need them the most, whether that's for an educational piece, to have a little laugh, or to not feel so alone. As a reminder, Calling in Sick sits on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and anywhere else where you can find your listens. From the bottom of my heart, I absolutely love you guys. Thank you so much for calling in sick with me every Monday. It's been an honor and a pleasure so far, and I can't wait to continue. I can't wait to continue building this community with y'all. Love you.